Hey folks, and welcome back to King of Projects and our next project. This is a Tandy TRS-80 Model 100 notebook computer. You don't really see people do a ton of videos for these, mostly because they were almost exclusively used for business purposes, especially say a journalist or anybody that did writing back then. But I've got to say, I remember looking at this in a Radio Shack when I was about 18, I guess, because it came out in 1983, and that's when I was 18. And it was ridiculously expensive. Back then, an 8K version was $1,099, and a 24K version was $1,399. That's $1,983. Well beyond anything that I could afford at 18 years old. And this is a 32K. This is topped out, and I got it at a great deal, which is what I always look for. And I was just fascinated by it, and I'd like to take you along and see what we have to see. Now, the guy that sold it to me said not working with power supply or batteries. So I was expecting that. I was thinking it was going to be a rebuild, you know, looking for major problems to get this thing started. But I put in 4 AA batteries, which is what it uses. Not bad, really. It was expected to last about 20 hours on 4 AA batteries. So I put in the batteries and turned it on, and he was right. There was nothing on the screen. But the guy I bought it from was not a computer guy. It was just somebody selling stuff. And he didn't realize a lot of LCD screens that weren't calculators usually had a screen button here. This is labeled display. I don't know if you can see it, DISP. And it brings up the, I would say brightness, but it's not backlit. This is only a reflective screen. But it brings up the screen, so I thought, well, let's move the dial and see if anything comes up. And by golly, there it is. Now, this was the screen you always came to when you first turned it on. Notice it's got a line of dead pixels here. We'll have to take a look and see what's causing that. And you had several choices. You could program in BASIC on it. You could do text, which is, I guarantee you, is probably about 90% of what this thing did was somebody writing text on it. A telecom, that is because it has a 300 baud modem inside, and an address book, and then extra spaces for a scheduler, and extra spaces for programs you could list on the main screen. Notice it says 29628. That shows you it's a 32K build. Now, the keyboard was a nice standard keyboard, regular size keys. You could touch type on it. The function keys, there was 8 function keys across the top. These were programmable. Already programmed keys have pause and break, print, label, paste, and these 4 were your arrow keys. Now, I liked it. I always liked it because it was one solid unit. There was nothing hanging off of it. It didn't have to open up. That's why people, I think, like the current phones now that are just a solid, you don't have to flip. Anytime you have to flip something open, that's a place where something can break. Now, the Model 200 that came out after it, I think the next year, I believe 1984, it had a flip top screen, more memory, and it had a direct port for displaying on a monitor if you wanted. Okay, this ran on an Intel 80C85, which is similar to an 8080, but less support chips needed. It ran at 2.4 megahertz, and it's got on it, that's a socket for a barcode reader. These are settings for the internal modem. You've got a phone jack, cassette, printer port here, a serial port. On the other side, on and off switch, the screen display adjustment, and a power cord jack. On the back, Here's where your batteries are. This is a switch that allows, there's a NiCad battery inside. It says on and off, it says memory power on it. What that's for is if you put it on, if you turn off the computer, you turn it back on, it's going to be at exactly where you left off. If you were writing something, a basic program or a text file, you turn off the computer, you turn it back on, it will still be there. And you know, that was pretty rare in the 80s, I tell you. Early 80s especially. And under this lid, and what you've got here is this socket is connection to the main bus interface. It's used by the disc video interface peripheral. They gave you 1 or 2 5 1/4 floppy drives, composite video, and 80 column text. This is for an option ROM. It's for expansion of additional software, and I believe they had Multiplan, which was a spreadsheet for you guys that aren't old enough to know better, a better word processor, financial packages, disk operating systems, forced programming language, and I think there was one for basic tools, if I remember right. Okay, well, let's take a look on the inside. And I have a feeling the sag in the keyboard has something to do with the fact that almost no keys work. Only the numbers and like 2 letters work on this, so I have a feeling we're going to open this up and find out real quick. It's just 4 screws. I'm going to turn it off for now, make sure I don't do something accidentally when I open it up. Let's see if we can get this apart. Couple of catches there, but not very strong ones. There we go. Okay. Hey, I like this. This thing allows you to open it up and lay both pieces down and everything still be connected. I like that a lot. Get the screws out of the way. So look at that. And you can see the RAM is populated here. Here's the battery, the NiCad for backup storage of your program. Got a ribbon cable here over to the LCD screen and the driver board. And of course, oh, look at this. Let's see if I can get you down here at a proper angle so you can see it. Now I know why the board's caving in. Can you see it? Let me see if I can get you down there. There is a large crack approximately from here all the way over to here. And that's why the board caves in at that point. Well, there's a lot of traces broken throughout that section, but you know, there's no problem with bridging them, but I'm going to need some way of supporting that. That's going to stay caved in, and every time I use it, it will put pressure on that broken area. I was wondering what it would have for support other than the board itself in strength, and it had one thing. This guy right here. It's got a little rubber top. You can even see where that went. Right there. See if yeah, there you go. Went right there. It needs more than one. Obviously, something either hit or pressured it and it cracked here. especially probably because that pressure point was holding it at this point. I'll bridge all the traces with some wire, because there's no way you can bridge the traces with solder, because the board's going to flex at that point because it's broken. This board is very supported. There's no flexing whatsoever, and the board is thicker than the keyboard. So, and it's very close to this support point. So there's not going to be any flexing when I put pressure at this point. I'll put something here that's the same height that this is, and when I close it up, it will put pressure at that point and push that keyboard back out to where it belongs and support it at that weak point. It has to be done. Also, the display board, we're going to have to bring that out. There'll probably be a metal frame around it, and that holds the LCD screen to the circuit board, and it's going to have, I'm sure, a rubber electrical strip along the bottom and the top, and it's probably dirty at one point somewhere. So we'll have to pull that apart, clean it, and see if that will fix that dead pixel line. A lot of corrosion in different spots. I don't know if you can see that or not. Let me see. There we go. See that area? That area is corroded. I think this, yeah, look at that. This capacitor's been leaking. Even, I'm surprised this whole thing's running. That guy's going to have to be replaced. And I see corrosion in different areas. Other area, yeah, look at this. Other areas of corrosion. There's corrosion points here and here. Well, we got some stuff to do. So let's get to it. Yeah, that capacitor is definitely a leaker. Take a look at the board once it was out of the way. Look at that. There's a lot of corrosion around there. Okay, I got it cleaned up pretty good. There was a little bit left that I wanted to get it a little bit cleaner, so I put a little deoxit on there and scrubbed it with a little toothbrush. That stuff's magical. It got rid of any of the corrosion that was left. So I'm ready to put on the new electrolytic capacitor. Okay. That looks good. A lot better than the one that was in there. So next thing will be to tackle the screen. There's your speaker. And there's your screen. Now what it is, it's got this metal frame holding the LCD screen to the board with those electrical rubber strips, probably at the top and the bottom. I know I don't want to damage the screen or I'll be screwed, so. Okay, let's delicately see if we can get this separated. Yep, it's coming up. Let me get a small screwdriver to carefully pry. Oof, there's glass under there. I gotta be careful. Okay, this end is up, and there we go. Okay. Okay, let's get that side loose. And there she is. Actually, what I decided to do was get a microfiber cloth, spray some deoxit on it, and carefully wipe the connections here. I already did it to the board. There was some pads on there that looked like they had a little bit of oxidation on it, but now they all look evenly clean. I'm just wiping it down here. See, look, there's something on there I'm getting off. Holy cow, that was an adventure. I've spent, oh, I don't know, maybe 3 hours off camera trying to get this fixed. I pulled the display off. I cleaned the zebra strips over and over, and the contacts on the board over and over and over. And not only could I not get the line out, I ended up getting a couple of more. So what I did, zebra strips get compressed. They'll end up getting a memory of where they're positioned at, and they'll lose contact. So what I did is across up here on the glass and down here, I put 2 layers of duct tape to increase the pressure on the zebra strips and hopefully not break the glass, and thank goodness I didn't. So I've actually got a full screen. I didn't think I'd ever get it. I thought, oh no, I'll never be able to finish the video. But I've got this done. Hooray! So there's the only thing left is the support to hold the keyboard out, and then this thing will be done. Okay, I'm just going simple with this. I've got a plastic spacer I have, and I sanded it down to the proper height, and I'm going to put it right here. That is almost exactly opposite of the center of the crack, so when I fold it over, it'll have support right where the crack is. There's a lot of supports for this board nearby, so there is no flex if I put a little pressure on it there. It should be fine. There's very little pressure that I'm applying anyway. I just want to support the board at the crack, so when you use the keyboard, you're not putting more pressure and causing the crack to go further. And so that's about it. Let's close it up and see how it works. Carefully watching it as I put the sides together. Okay, that lifted the board right where it was sagging. Battery cover back on. And let's double check and see what we've got. It's working perfectly, no dead pixels. The keyboard is nice and flat now and supported. All the keys work. I think we're done. That wasn't too bad, except for trying to get that screen to work. That was a chore. But we got something else fixed. Oh, and one last little tidbit I forgot to tell you. Notice that the screen says Microsoft, like most Radio Shack computers did in the 1980s, because Radio Shack leased their software from Microsoft. But this little guy is a little bit special. That's because this is the last thing that Bill Gates wrote firmware for. He wrote the software for this, and it was the last time he did. So he said before that this little guy has a soft place in his heart, since it's the last true software work that he did. Glad you came along. I hope I didn't bore you, and I'll catch you next time. So what I'm going to have to do is take the frame off, twist these little guys out, and take that metal frame off.